And now, ladies and gentlemen, Skywalker.
Thank you, Jim Davis, and thanks for coming back in 2022. Nice round of applause for our announcer, Jim Davis. And a happy new year to you. Thanks for tuning in to Radio Memories. Here we are, January 5th, 2022. And thanks to our wonderful sponsor, Audio Girl Productions. Absolutely the best in the business, the pros at Audio Girl Productions. Devastatingly effective voiceover, music, recording for TV, radio, and all multimedia. I got a message, and I want to make it clear, yes, they do produce jingles, and they work with you to get exactly what you want. So check them out, audiogirlproductions.com. And what a great show we have to kick off 2022 with radio veteran Stoney Richards. Stoney has been up and down the dial from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles and all over the place, finally settling in Pittsburgh. I think he's been there for over 25 years, and he's going to share his radio memories. Radio veteran. He starts laughing.
I love this.
Stoney Richards. Stoney, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Happy holidays. My gosh, here we go into 2022, for God's sakes.
Didn't 2021 just fly by? Or are we just getting
gone a little faster?
Are we just getting older and it just seems like
sure. It's
just going by faster?
Oh my gosh, 2020. I mean, all I can hear is in my head is still to this day is Zager and Evans, and in the year 25. Okay, we got decades to go here. We got centuries to go. I'm fine.
It is so great to have you on Radio Memories, and I'm glad to have you on as the first guest of 2022. And I want to get right into I don't want to get into your technical knowledge because, Joe Cipriano told me that would be about a 10-second show.
I was going to just say, that'll take about 5 seconds. And you're good.
Let's get into your career. And where does it begin with Stoney Richards?
It begins in Detroit, which is my hometown where I was born, as Chuck Richards at W4. And it was a great radio station. I was still in college at the time. And I started doing weekends quickly, moved to overnights. And while I was doing the overnight show in Detroit on East Jefferson, from midnight till 6 on www Detroit FM.
That ain't easy to say.
That ain't easy. It's like, if you can do that, you may have a career.
Yeah.
So one night I'm doing midnight to 6, and it's about a little after 5 o'clock, a Friday night into a Saturday morning. And I got a call from our general manager at the time was Don Barrett. And Don, a great broadcaster himself, a great publicist himself, great in Hollywood and all, and has done so much for radio, calls me up. He says, Chuck, this is Don. I thought, oh man, this is it. I'm done. He said, you get off. What time you get off? 6. He said, yeah. Why don't you come by the house? We're gonna have breakfast. And I said, okay, I gotta drive all the way out to this guy's house to get fired. So I drive out to the house, and he says, we're putting something together, and I'd like you to do the morning show. And I grew up in Detroit with Dick Purton and J.P. McCarthy on WJR, and those guys are my idols. I was like, the morning 6 to 10 show, yes. And so I did, and it worked out really well. We had a great staff of people, and I did that for about a year and a half. And I then left because I discovered a guy by the name of Don Imus. And Imus in the morning, and he was working at WGAR in Cleveland. And I thought, man, that's radio. And Jack G. Thayer was the Jack G, for goodness, Thayer. Well, 20 WGAR, where your friends are. And John Lund was the program director, and I sent some tapes to him, as we used to do in those days. For those of you watching, digitally, those are pieces of tape, and they have sound on them. And so I sent a tape to John, and he said, this is good. Why don't you, let's talk about this. And I said, well, I can drive down. I was in Detroit. This was in Cleveland. It's about 2.5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove down and met John. And he said, you know what? This is going to work out. I think you're going to be all right. I'd like you to do it was the 8 to midnight show. And Imus was just leaving the station to go to WAM, basically in New York. So he had a few more weeks left, and so they hired me. But the one thing, and this is where the legend begins. John Lund says, but you can't beat Chuck Richards. We have a Chuck Collier, God bless him, God rest him. We have a Charlie, and so you can't be that name. You have to come up with something else. And he said, do you have any nicknames? I said, well, and now this is 69, 70, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't really have any nicknames. I've always been Chuck Richards on the air for the last year and a half. And I said, well, I played hockey. And he said, what'd you do with hockey? I said, well, I was a goalie. And he said, and did you enjoy that? I said, oh, yeah. I said, you got to be the stone wall. I said, that's what they always used to call me, Stoney. Speaking of nicknames, I never even thought of that. The coach always said, if the defense breaks down, you've got one more thing, and that's the stone wall. And that's what the goalie has to be. So I became Stoney. And I said, is that crazy or what? He said, no, that's great. You're going to be Stoney Richards. And I went, oh, John, I'm not going to be Stoney Richards. I had long hair. He said, you fit the role. And so they'd introduce me, and GIR was a monster, 50,000 watts and virtually a clear channel station, not the company. And
a frequency. Yeah, the clear channel frequency.
AM. And they'd introduce me and they'd go, this is our new 8 to midnight guy. This is Stoney Richard. I go, it's Charles. And they'd go, no, it's Stoney. I go, all right, fine. Well, it grew and it took off and it went. Yeah. And you want me to read the whole resume? Because this is where it really gets good.
Oh, yeah.
Because this wasn't very good. So if you've been listening, you kind of going, so where's you going with this?
I thought it was good.
Good. So I'm at WGAR and a guy, this is how radio goes. You meet people, you find people, you go, oh, I got to get out of this place. And then something happens. Well, I was having a great time at WGAR. Jack Thayer was a mentor of mine. I adored him. John Lund, a blessing in disguise. We hired an afternoon guy. They hired an afternoon guy there. Jan Torv came in from Australia. And Jan had just great. He was a great rock jock. And he was big on 2SM in Australia. This is 1972, something like that. And we became good friends. And we just had a ball together. I lived up.
And did he speak like Jan? I am Jan.
No, he had a very good Australian accent, and so he'd come over and I had an apartment and I don't know what I'm doing here now, but let me put it this way. John and I hung out enough, Jan and I hung out enough so that I earned the name of Stoney, if you know what I'm saying. So Jan was working there and then he left. He went to Los Angeles, which is west of Cleveland, I believe, along the Pacific coast. I'd never been there. And I started sending Jan stuff for his show. He said, I used to do some things with him, and I started sending him stuff. And he said, this is great. This is fine. Jan calls, and he says, hey, I was playing some stuff for Chuck Bloor, who was the head of our radio station. Ted Atkins was a program director. Chuck Bloor, who was a god, he invented color radio, KFWB in Los Angeles and commercials galore.
And believe this or not, I'm sorry for interjecting me. Chuck Bloor did when Greater Media took over K-Hits 97. This is before you guys arrived. He did our first television commercial. And it was K-Hits 97 for you and your unicorn. Now, keep in mind, we thought it was great, but the suits at Greater Media looked at it in such confusion.
What does it mean?
Like, what the hell is this?
What do you mean, unicorn? Can we say unicorn on the radio?
But Chuck Bloor was such a creative mind that, and they thought Chuck Bloor and Bobby Rich were crazy. This is prior to your arrival.
Yep.
Anyway, I just had to interject that little story.
Chuck was known for that through forever. Color, what is color radio? When he did the Amazing Mouse. When you heard a Chuck Bloor commercial, you would always go, whether it was on radio or television, you'd go, what? Oh, what was that? And so he was the guy. Chuck liked what I was doing. He said, why don't you come out here and work here? And I said, wow, because I always thought my career would be like Detroit, maybe to Cleveland, to Chicago, hopefully New York. I never looked at Los Angeles. I went out there and it was a great success for its time. It was completely unique and different. And we at Kiss AM, and we had a ball there. And I got to know Chuck and Ted Atkins, who my God, Boss Radio and that name, those names were legends to me, even, as a 22-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. And just had a ball working there. And then from there, and I met Dave Diamond, who he and I became, oh my God, I miss him so much. And I still look at his picture and I still stay in touch with people that knew Dave, because he was just a great friend. And he was, he was the guy, and he kind of took me under his wing, like, let's go out to breakfast. We'll go to Tiny Nailers and get some salsa or something. Just always had a ball with him. He always took care. And so did that for a while, and then did after K-Hits happened, and we had Jim Conley on last month. I got off the air at K-Hits, and I was really having a great time. And Jim said, I just had lunch. It was really good. We went for Chinese food, and we had some. You ever have dim sum? It's really good. I said, yeah. He said, yeah, it was delicious. He said, I don't eat the egg rolls. By the way, we're going to let you go. So if you can just, it was like that. And it was like, what, were we just talking about Chinese food? And did you just say you're letting me go? Or did I misunderstand that? And I was too young. I was just like, oh, okay, fine. And so that was the end of that for me. And
is that really how it happened for you?
I swear to God, this is how it happened. It was like,
wow.
We were talking about Chinese food, and I guess it was just he didn't quite know how to say it. I mean, we didn't have any animosity between us, but right. It was just, I guess something happened that's what they had to do, or they just they hated me. And he just said, so I had lunch, and so it was good, the dim sum, but we're gonna let you go. Okay.
Did that just take you aback? I mean, yeah, were you just completely?
We gotta make some changes. We're gonna make it. Okay, so anyway, I got a meeting, so I'll talk to you, and I'm gone. Welcome to radio, right?
Yeah.
And then so from there, I went to Washington D.C. Again, Jack G. Thayer, another great radio story. It's who you know and why you know, mm-hmm. and why you love them. Mm-hmm. His son, Todd Thayer, and I were best friends, and Jack and I were good friends as well. I auditioned for a job in Atlanta. I think it was WKST. Forgive me if I forget the call letters. And they were going to hire me. And I was in Atlanta. They flew me out to Atlanta, and I did, some a week of auditions, on the air. Mm-hmm. And so I call on a whim. I called Jack, and I said, "Hey, Jack, it's Stoney, and listen, I'm in Atlanta. It looks like I'm going to get a show here at GST." And he said, "No. And I said, "What? What was the matter?" He said, "Nothing's wrong." He said, "Get on a plane." I said, "No, they flew me out here. I can't take their flight." He said, "Oh," he was the head of NBC Radio at the time. And he said, I'll fly up to DC. He said, come on. And I okay. So I got on a plane. They flew me up to DC, and they introduced me to the program director and the general manager and all that stuff. He said, here's your new morning man. And I was the new morning man. Bob Henneberry was a consultant. And it was like, you're going to love this guy. They didn't even know me. And here I was on the air. And that's where I met Joe Cipriano. I did the morning show. He did the middays. So I got off at 10. He got in at 10:45 or so. He was, but he was, he was on. I'm making the joke. I was on. He was late. So like, Joe, where the hell are you? It's 10:15. Yeah, I know. I got caught on the beltway. Joe, 115. And so we became friends in 1976 and have remained friends through all these years. And he's my best friend in the world. Wow. And so we did that, and then we both got fired because the acting bug bit in the middle of this. And I was like, I really want to do this. I don't know why, but I want to do this. And so I got really into acting and enjoyed it. And I got involved in some things and got cast in a number of things. And they were doing Hair, the movie version. Milos Forman was doing the movie version of Hair in Washington, D.C. And they cast me as an extra. And, nothing much. I was a photographer, a reporter. But this was Milos Forman, this was Hair. It was, oh my God. So I called our program director and said, hey, look at man, I threw my back out. I can't do the morning show. I can't get out of bed. They said, oh man, I mean, this is the creep that you're watching now. Okay, let's be honest. And so our program director said, Gordon said, I'm not even going to give the name, but Gordon said, get better, man, get better. So I said, you bet. And then I went down and went to the set, and I'm working. It's a true story. I'm working and doing the scenes, and word got out from we had the producers at the time, or not board ops, they were real producers. They did everything. The only thing you were allowed to do was turn your mic on. You couldn't touch the mic. If you touched the mic, they'd say, that's my job.
Right.
You give me a call, I'll move it for you. Okay. So word got out that Stoney Richards is doing a movie and he can't come to work. And so Gordon got this. It got back to Gordon. He comes down to the set, and the cast members heard. They said, the DJ's boss is looking for him. And I mean, it spreads like wildfire through the crew. They put me in a bus, and everybody got on the bus, and they just were like, and Gordon comes up in there, up the step of the bus, and he goes, is there a Stoney Richards here? Anybody looking for Stoney Richards? And they're like, And he looks, he goes, Stoney. And I said, yeah, Gordon, hey, yeah, what's up? And he said, you're fired. That's it. You're done. And I said, I get that. I get that. We swore a little bit at each other and said some nasty things. And that was the end of that. In the middle of this, the casting director for that movie, for Hair, says, hey, they're doing a movie, as he said, they're doing Bernie Stiles was his name. He said, hey, Stoney, Chuck, whatever your name is, they're doing a movie up in Baltimore. It's not very far away. It's called Seduction of Joe Tynan. It's got Alan Alda in it, Meryl Streep, maybe, I don't know. And Meryl Streep was not a star at the time. She was coming up, obviously. And he said, go up there, you get a job, tell him, And so I said, okay. So I drove up there and went and got the job. And boom, I was there, and I was in the trailer and everything. And Joe also had an extra part in that movie as well.
Wow.
We were both out of work.
Wow.
Then went over to Q107, and Joe did, I don't know what shift. I guess he did afternoon drive, I'm guessing. And I did like 8 to midnight, or 10 to 2.
That's in DC.
In DC, yeah. Q107. And we were screaming rock and roll, and it was a ball. We were talking about this earlier before we got on the machinery here. That in those days, for 4 hours, you just had a ball. Your earphones were up high. The studio was shaking. Your cigarette was burning off to the side here. You had a little drink of coffee, and you were doing radio, and you were talking fast, and you were hitting the intro and all that stuff, and you were taking calls. And when you'd ask for a call, it'd be like 18 calls, like that, And it was a ball. I'd get off at 2:00 in the morning. I had a convertible at the time, and I'd drive home in the summertime to top down, screaming my lungs out, still singing along to the songs, Seeger, and just having a ball. I'd get home. I'd stay up. Yeah. I would stay up till 4:00 in the morning listening to Larry King on Mutual Network. Hello, let's go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And because you're so
Albuquerque, you're on the air.
Hello. I was so buzzed and just, it was just, that was my life for a long time. Then we left and went back to Los Angeles, and that's where I ended up then at K-Hits, and was doing that, and then left that and went to KZL. Well, I was left out of that, and then went to KZLA. Bill Main hired me over there, and now I remember I came back to Los Angeles to work solely on acting. So I came in and I was doing like temp work. And I mean, if I got a $10, $20 tip, I was like, oh man, this is great. I got hired at K-Hits, and we made more in one afternoon than you could make in a week of work as a temp. And it was this is great. But I was still pursuing acting, still going to auditions and stuff. And I got into the Olympic Theater Festival. When the Olympics were in Los Angeles, we were doing Hamlet. And I had several roles in Hamlet with Jamie Cromwell, also a good friend of mine. And so we're doing the play, and Bill Main says, I want to put you on KZLA. You should be doing afternoons. And I said, well, no, I was working overnights because I wanted to. And he said, you're doing overnights. I said, yeah, but
I want to point out, this is one of the reasons why Machine Gun Kelly kept getting fired, because he would want time off when he was doing afternoon drive at whatever radio station, and the program directors did not want to give him that time off. Inevitably he would get fired. And you chose to do overnights at KZLA because you wanted that time.
It's like if I wasn't there, it wasn't going to be a big deal. And at midnight to 6, nobody's calling you to go out for an audition. Right. So I did the play. I'd get done at 11 o'clock, zoom in, and Bill would say, would you get the tights off and let's just do afternoons? So when Cap Cities went crazy about buying radio stations, they picked up KLAC, and Bill brought me in and Ted Stecker to do afternoons at KLAC, I did it for 10 years over there. And it was sensational. Norm Epstein was the general manager, a genius. He could sell you your own car at a price 10 times more than you ever did. He was that good. And I would watch him at these meetings. We'd have clients and we did travel shows. We'd go to Hawaii and do radio and stuff. And he would talk to these people and they'd be like,
and you did a lot of travel shows. You went everywhere.
All 5 islands of Hawaii, twice a year. We went to London. We went skiing in Utah. We did Northern California, Southern California, San Diego, and all as a radio. It was radio. And it's like, why don't people do that now? You talk with the various people that own businesses. You maybe talk to the mayor of the town, or in Utah, the freaking governor, for God's sake. And, and they were just thrilled. It was like, oh, this is good. And it was about tourism. And they sold it 4 different ways. They sold like American Express was our travel card. Let's say United Airlines was our airline. The hotel was whatever was that big hotel at the time. Let's just say the Marriott for the sake of that. And then there was like the travel bureau, and they'd each pitch in a tremendous amount of money. And so the budget was massive. And so they had that plus everybody else that wanted to get on board, and it was a ball. And so we did that. We did that for like 5 years.
You went everywhere.
Absolutely. And while I was there, so I'm doing the show at KLAC, and Bill Main was the program director. Dear friend, I love him to death, still do, and which is really odd. But anyway, so I'm doing the show, and he leaves. He goes to Dallas, and Bob Guerra comes in. Now, Bill was the kind of guy we've all worked for. You could walk into his office, put your feet up, and go, man, why do we play such lousy music? He'd say, get out of here. Bob Guerra, God bless him. And I still do interviews with clients that he has. Thank God for that, because we're very good friends too. And Bob was very buttoned up, never took his jacket off behind the desk. And he would have a pen. You'd walk in and he'd go, what do you need? And he'd go, oh, I wanted to talk to you about vacations. Yeah, just fill out a form and send it to me. I'll take care of that. Anything else? And so one day I get cast in a movie, Punchline, with Tom Hanks and a whole bunch of folks.
Big movie.
Big movie, yeah.
And big actor. I mean,
Brothers, right down in Burbank, and 6 weeks. And so I thought, well, I guess I'm going to have to leave the show.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Six weeks.
I go in to Bob, and I said, "Hey, Bob, what's going on? How you doing?" He said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'm, I've been doing some acting, and I just got a role in a movie." As he's looking down, writing like big deal, and Punchline with Tom Hanks. Maybe you know Tom Hanks, bosom buddy. No, okay. Anyway, I'm going to be in the movie, and it's going to be like 6 weeks that I'll be working. And he's writing, and he goes, 6 weeks? And I said, yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, here's where I go. So I'm going to have to leave. And Bob pauses and just looks at me and goes, what a country. 6 weeks, Stoney Richards on a movie? And I said, yeah. And he said, can you make calls from the set, like maybe a couple times a week to the night show, something like that? I said, yeah, go for it. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me? And RJ Curtis was the assistant program director at the time. And I'm sure RJ was like, what the hell are you doing, Bob? So I did. And then came, when the movie was done, came back and went on, and they were great, because when I had other roles in other films, I'd say I took my vacation time based on roles. So, it'd be getting close to the end of the year, and my wife would be saying, you still got 3 weeks of vacation left. I said, don't worry, something's going to come along. And it always did. So then we did that, and then came out here to Pittsburgh to Y108, and again, doing country. And I mean, the KLAC in Los Angeles was just a powerhouse of country music, even though it was an AM station.
Oh,
with KZLA, the two of us were monsters.
Monsters.
Yeah. And country being country, the artists, you get to know them, not like we did in pop or in rock, where you kind of couldn't really have an interview with these guys. They just kind of go, whatever, man. Yeah, okay. And that was it. With country, it was like, dude, how you doing? We did a show at Universal Amphitheater with George Jones, Mark Chestnut, and Conway freaking Twitty. They sandwiched Mark Chestnut in between George Jones and Conway Twitty to introduce him with the label. So we went to the show, and I met all three of them. I knew Chestnut, but I mean, Conway Twitty. And the thing was, backstage, you were finding these young, as I call them, Melrose girls, going, oh, that's Conway Twitty. My dad loves Conway Twitty, and he's so cute. That whole kind of a thing. And they're like, they're dolls, right? And so we took a picture. I have a picture with Denise Roberts and Allie McGraw from Love Story. Yeah. I said, Allie, she said, this is Allie McGraw. I said, hi, Allie. She said, I'm a big fan of country music. I have you on in the barn every day. And I'm like, okay, I am done. Allie McGraw. So then that began my sojourn into country music, and I just loved it. And I fell in love with all the artists. And it being LA, everybody who ever did a show, you had to come to KLAC. You had to do that interview. And so I was the one that really got to do most of that stuff, and I loved it, and got to know Dwight Yoakam and Garth Brooks and Reba McEntire and Dolly Parton, everybody. It just wonderful. And so when I came to Pittsburgh, we moved because our son was 3, and we were looking at LA Unified Schools, and it was like, man, this is bleak. This is really bleak. And again, Bill Main calls up. He said, they're looking for a show in a morning show in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. I called Joe Cipriano. I said, hey, Joe, guess what? I'm leaving LA. He said, what? I said, yeah, I got another job. He said, oh, that's so good. Where are you going? I said, Pittsburgh. Joe? Pittsburgh.
He passed out.
And what I discovered after almost 19 years here in Pittsburgh, that it's an audience, just like they told me, that loves radio, loves DJs, loves you going out and spinning prize wheels and doing concerts and telling stories. And so I stayed, and our son grew up. I had an offer to go to Chicago at a country station up there. I guess it was US 99. Didn't take it because our son was playing hockey, and I thought, he's having a ball. We're not going to leave, and it didn't last. And I mean, the current regime that was there at the time. And so I've been doing country for all these years. And then we were just talking just a few weeks ago. I decided after all this, it's maybe time to just step away and not balance two careers at the same time. And
and you know what? I wasn't surprised. I will say, and I want to just interject this thought is what you have said is I worked for Charlie Tuna for the last 12 years of his life. I was part of his organization, and he had given me my own syndicated radio show, which was the Hollywood Minute with Skywalker. Right. And it was a syndicated feature, and it ran for 3 years. And I finally got on CKLW. It was finally, but it was a news station, and it was, but I owe a lot to Charlie Tuna, and I had first met him when I was 14 years old. But the one thing that Charlie did do was country radio, and he did it for about, I think it was about 14 years. And he said it was the most loyal audience, and the artists would do anything for you.
Right.
And he said, and he would tell me, Dave, or Sky, whatever name you want to call me. He'd known me since I was a kid, so he called me Dave.
Right.
This is the most loyal group of artists you will ever run into. And he often urged me, he said, if you really want to get back into what was once top 40, get into country music, because believe me, it's almost like reliving top 40.
It is.
They are so devoted. Not only is the audience devoted, but so are the artists, and they will be there like that. And he really felt such a loyalty to not only the artists, but the audience. So I just wanted to interject that little thought real quick. And as you were just about to speak, as radio is now coming to its end, I was shocked to hear that you recently, just towards the end of December, ended at the top of your game. You were number one at Y108 in Pittsburgh, the number one country station. Decided, you know what? I'm going to concentrate my career now on just acting. And I'm not sure if it's because you've recognized, or I don't know. I'll just let you explain. Is it because you realize that digital media has really taken control and radio is not what it once was, doesn't have the audience that it once did? Or what was your reasoning? Because you voluntarily gave up, and did you hang up the headphones, or is this just something that you just you're going to now do radio maybe here and there if there's something to do, and there seems to be less and less to do on terrestrial radio, and certainly you have a long career in acting, and if that's what you're going to concentrate on now, I think that's a great move.
I'd like to answer all those questions in an upcoming podcast. Join us next week.
Did I ask too many questions?
I'm keeping track. Okay. Well, you're right about Charlie Tuna, and you're right about country music. You're 100% correct, because that was one of the reasons that I embraced country, because it was like, no greater station to me. I grew up on CKLW, the Motor City, the Big 8, and 93 KHJ. And those were just great radio stations to me. But then you got people involved that when we're going to do just like Drake does, Bill Drake does, we're going to do that format. And they didn't know what the hell they were doing. And so you ended up doing 7-second intros, and they were going, you stepped on a record, or you did this, or you did that. And it was like you walked in, you walked out, and you had there was nothing, no emotion there. And with country, not only do you have the artists, but you have the fans. And I always said it's like doing a soap opera, because if you say something on the air, or they get to know you, and then they find out that you're not who you said you were, they'll hold that against you. Or, and rightfully so, because they believe you. So you have to be honest and fair. And if you say, I don't like a song, I don't know what that song is all about, they're going to call you on it and say, well, I like that song, or you're an idiot. You have no right to say that. You're going to hear from them. And the artists are the same way, but they embrace you, and they'll see you on the street and say, Dave, how you doing, Big Daddy? And you'll talk, and you have real conversations with people. You say, hey, can we do a little call in the morning? It would be fun to just talk about the new single. Yeah, sure. Okay. What time? Here's my number. Call me. So that all that makes sense. Radio is the decision for me was one of the hardest decisions, because everything was just fine. It wasn't like, I can't do this anymore. These people are driving me crazy. I got lousy people. No, it was great people, and I loved the place. And our GM, SPAC, as we call him, was so supportive. And Mark Anderson, the program director in BP, great. Odyssey, Tim Roberts, the whole line of them, good people. But I thought, geez, am I going to sign up for 3 mornings? Is a big commitment. You don't walk in and you don't walk in and walk out. You walk in, you walk out, you start working on tomorrow. And you're driving somewhere at 5:30 at night, and you go, oh my God, that's a funny bit. Suddenly you want to put that in the morning show tomorrow, or you stay up late and watch the news, because that's going to be the lead story in the morning, and you better be ready to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I had 3 years on this contract that we were doing like 3 and 3. And at the end of the 3rd year, which was in December, I thought, I don't want to do this for 3 more years. It's just, and it's becoming more now social media, which is what we're on now, but it more, and they're letting the sound of radio just, I don't know. It's like, is it not important? And I know it's important. But the way all of radio management is attacking this seems to be just make sure you get the website up there and give them the content and do a little thing. And it's like, and that's okay. But I'm goofy in that I just like you, like Joe, being on the radio and talking and telling a story and getting an audience and taking a call from somebody. And they either, bawl you out or say, this was really fun. And you go, oh my gosh. Or like, I listen to you every morning, not because of the ego thing. It's like, you're not talking to that one person you're imagining. They're really there, Right. And so I thought, acting is doing well. I just did a movie with Liam Neeson called The Marksman. I did The Chair on Netflix, which is hopefully gets renewed this season, which I'm hoping for, and an American Rust. With Jeff Daniels. So things are coming, and I'm doing a play coming up shortly. And I thought, you know what? I don't have to do this. So why am I doing this? And right. So we figured it out. And it's really not, I'm going to leave and I'm going to find another job in radio. I think I'll probably be doing more stuff for Y108 and for Odyssey in terms of interviews. Long form stuff, maybe something like what you're doing,
which will probably end up on the digital platform. Oh, what a pleasure talking with you, Stoney Richards. And I thank you for taking the time and for being the very first guest of 2022. I consider it good luck. And you know what? I want to check in with you again and talk about your film career and your acting career. And I hope you do, if you find the time. Because I would love to hear what's going on with you, and check in to see if you do, hook up with radio again, if that actually becomes something that you do, or if you do become part of digital media. And so I hope you do come back to Radio Memories.
And it may be the shortest show ever, because you'll say, so what's going on? And I'll go, really nothing. Thank you so much for being.
I don't believe that. I believe there's a lot to be told, and I hope you do come back to the show. Happy New Year, and Stoney, I wish you nothing but the best.
You are the best, and we will talk off the air as well, because This is fun.
Such a pleasure talking with Stoney Richards, and I hope we get to talk to him before year's end and check in and see what's going on with him. A funny guy and just an all-around good egg. Thank you, Stoney, for your time. Coming up next week, I'm not going to let you know who it is yet, but you're going to like it. And I hope you tune in next week for more great radio memories.
Check out past interviews on the Radio Memories YouTube channel and on Spotify. Click the links. This is Maggie McKay for Radio Memories, a Dave Schuyler production.
Radio Memories.